Yeah, and so I was thinking about this at the beginning of the show, or when I was like thinking about the beginning of the series, and
Mhm.
the series starts with Trunks coming back in, and
Right.
I was thinking about something because remember, Trunks comes from the future and essentially
Mhm.
creates a separate timeline by telling Goku and all the Z fighters essentially, like he didn't actually tell the Z fighters, but he tells all the Z fighters that the
Right.
androids are coming, they're about to fuck shit up. They're gonna come in what 2 years time or something like that,
Yep.
and shit's about to pop off. And he's like,
Got the
"Hey,
pop.
Goku, you didn't get a chance to fight because you died from a heart
Right.
attack or from a heart
Yeah.
disease, and we have a cure for that now. So I'm gonna
Yeah.
go ahead and I'm gonna give you these real quick. And oh, by the way, my nigga Yamcha, you are not the dad. Tell him, Maury.
Yeah. Oh,
Oh,
I'm
you are
not sure
not the
everybody.
father, Yamcha. What up,
And
Vegeta?
at that point in time, was Yamcha still with her?
No, but they weren't
He
like her
wasn't.
and Vegeta
Okay.
weren't together either.
I know they weren't together yet.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
I
so
know
he
that
was
part.
like, remember, because they flashed to him. That's one scene I
Yeah.
specifically remember. They flashed to Yamcha, and he's like, well, fuck, Vegeta? If this was
Yeah.
literally anybody else in the world, I'd have a chance. But fucking Vegeta? I just gotta let
Yeah,
that
man.
happen, I guess. It was
Yamcha
wild.
steady taking L's, left and
Yeah.
right,
But to kind of land the
left and
plane,
right.
but to kind of land the
Yeah.
plane on my point, so I thought about this and I was like, the power system's
Mhm.
broken. I genuinely, in my head, I believe the creator of Dragon Ball Z, I think he
Mhm.
intended in his head, he was like, you know what? I got to get rid of Goku because he's too powerful. So how about
Really?
I get rid of a disease or I give him a disease that has nothing to do with power and it attacks the inside. So really, like there's no way for him to fight it. And then I think
Right.
he thought about that and maybe worked a storyline down that. And he was like, you know
Yeah.
what? I don't like this. Goku's the best character. Here's what I'll do. I'll create an alternate timeline where Goku dies and certain people have to live that reality, but that's not the reality we're following. We're going to follow this reality where Trunks comes back and saves his life. Because in my
Mhm.
head, I played it out to where Trunks essentially kind of takes over. And so I personally think that this storyline started as legitimately Goku's end and he just
Hmm.
decided against it, but decided to like the idea of having him coming back and still creating a separate timeline where that happens. Do
Yeah.
you think that's a possibility?
No. Only in that he's the main character. I just don't think you can create a whole Dragon Ball series and then kill him off or think about killing him off. What I thought was they needed to weaken him somehow because you need to give your support
Gotcha.
characters time to shine
Uh
or
huh.
time to pull up and do what they got to do. Like Vegeta hadn't turned Super Saiyan yet. So you still got to figure out a way to get him that time. And
Right.
Goku was OP at the time. He's the only Super Saiyan that we knew of prior
Right.
to
Right.
Trunks actually turning. And
Right.
then
Gold hair on.
how do you so how the fuck do you have a broken power system and then mute the most powerful character?
So
And the disease is where I thought he came
okay.
in and was
Okay.
like it I thought he came in was like, how can I make the disease last long enough to where other characters have their moments?
Oh, okay, that makes sense. Now, so
And
here's the
that's
next
where
question,
he
right? So the other part of this theory is that they didn't know the androids were coming. So they were
right,
training like normal in that alternate timeline, and they all lost to him, Gohan being the last one to lose. That was the first time
right.
we got to see super buffed up, yoked up Gohan, who was
Yeah.
actually a warrior.
Yeah,
And
rocking the
then
Goku gear too.
yeah, yeah. And then so if you go back, like let's say he comes and there's no cure, right? Like
Mhm,
remember he came back, he's like, hey, we developed a cure after it happened. But let's say
mhm.
he comes back, there's no cure, and he's like, hey, motherfucker, you're gonna die. You guys, you have 2 years to
Yeah.
train and get ready for this. And remember, you guys were training regularly for those 2 years
Mhm.
before. So now you're gonna have to fucking really train hard.
You have to ramp that shit up.
Do you think that changes what happens in Trunks' future if that's the case?
If he comes back and says, "Hey, you're gonna die. We don't have a cure, so we got to figure some shit out,"
Yeah.
man. Um,
Do all the
I think,
Z warriors die again?
I think. Ooh, that's a great question
Or does
because
somebody rise up and take Goku's place?
right, I think somebody rises up. I think if they write that in, either Gohan rises up or Vegeta rises up
S
because I think it gives them enough time to still train to the point of the hyperbolic time chamber. Does that make sense? So, like, if they
Yeah,
realized, "Oh, shit, like, Goku's definitely gonna die," they would've went to Kami immediately and been like, "Yo, what the fuck are our options? What the fuck's gonna go down?" And then
yeah,
he would've been like, "Well, my best guess is, train you guys in the hyperbolic and hope for the best." Does he reach that same level? That's up for debate, right? I
right.
mean, I would assume they would write that in, but that would be my thought process is that some of them do die, but ultimately either Gohan steps up or Vegeta steps up because they're the
I think
two closest to Goku.
Yeah, I think it ends up turning into a collective where people wear him down, and then we find one hero who steps up at the end, who would probably be Gohan, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Because I think Vegeta's role in the show would never change. I think his role is to always have someone better than him because that defines his character essentially.
Also, I don't think a lot of what happens because they had moments that where they could have won throughout and they just let it slip by, right? Because it
Yeah,
wasn't
yeah.
quote unquote dire. Like Vegeta allowed that shit.
Krillin.
Krillin allowed that shit.
Yep.
There was multiple times. Even Gohan kind of was toying around. But I think when you bring up the
Fucking nerd.
aspect of Goku's dead and there's
Yeah.
no like trump card hanging out in the background, no, we got to end this now as soon as
Right.
possible. So I think that they take it a
Okay.
little bit more seriously. If I had to guess, where everybody's like, hey man, I know you want to fuck, but let's get this thing down. Or Vegeta, hey man, I know you want to see how bottomless his power is, but we got to get this shit wrapped up,
Yes, sir.
you
All
know.
right. Yeah.
So
Fair enough.
that's my thoughts on that.